Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I know that we have a large number of participants and followers for today's second day of our conference, looking towards peace in Afghanistan after the US-NATO withdrawal. This conference is jointly organized by the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies and the Arab Center, Washington, D.C. My name is Sultan Barakat, and I'm the director of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. Yesterday, we had our day one of the conference, which I believe was extremely insightful and have received a great deal of compliments and engagement, but also international media attention. Today, we have the great honor and privilege of welcoming His Excellency, Dr. Mohammad Ashraf Ghani, President of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, who will give the conference's keynote address before we continue with our panel 3 presentations and discussions. President Ghani will speak for about 30 minutes or so, and unfortunately will not be able to stay with us for the question and answer session due to other urgent commitments. Instead, following the President's presentation, we will press ahead with our panel 3, following a very short break to arrange the panelists, and we will start our discussion with a presentation from Dr. Mazar Saleh. At the end of the panel presentation, we will have plenty of time for for questions and answers, and I will come back to you with further directions as to how to use the Q&A function later when we start the panel discussion. As my colleague earlier emphasized, Ibrahim, when he started this session, we have the challenge of translating into 4 languages simultaneously. So you can follow us in English, Pashto, Dari, or Arabic. And I would like just to take this opportunity to thank our interpreters right at the beginning, because they've been doing heroic work over the last couple of days. And for English, you just use the English icon. For Pashto, there is an icon also in the Zoom function that says Pashto. For Dari, there isn't one, unfortunately, so you must use Chinese. You will hear Dari. And for Arabic, if you select Spanish, you will get the Arabic translation. I am extremely grateful that President Ghani is able to join us today, that he has found the time during his very busy schedule to deliver a keynote address at our academic conference underlines his considerable commitment to knowledge, scholarship, and peaceful future of Afghanistan. Today, we welcome President Ghani not just as a distinguished head of state who has made a mark on the global stage, but also as a fellow academic at heart. Ashraf Ghani grew up in Afghanistan before pursuing his education abroad. Like so many Afghans, the foreign invasion and civil war led to the persecution of his family and forced him to remain in exile. Whilst abroad, he became a leading scholar of political science and anthropology. He held a number of prestigious academic positions at Johns Hopkins and at the University of California, Berkeley, before eventually joining the World Bank, where he mastered the tools of international development. Following the fall of the Taliban in 2001, Mr. Ghani returned to Afghanistan to devote his unique skills and knowledge to the rebuilding of the country. He advised the interim president Karzai and served as the finance minister in the transitional Islamic State of Afghanistan until December 2004. During his tenure as finance minister, he designed a package of reforms and initiated several public investment programs that led to significant improvements in the livelihoods of ordinary Afghans across the country. He declined to join the newly elected government in December 2004, and instead he served as the chancellor of Kabul University, where his successful leadership was critical to restoring the university to its status as the leading national academic institution in Afghanistan. He remained an influential voice in political circles, both in Afghanistan and abroad. And in 2010, he chaired the Transition Coordination Commission, which was responsible for transferring authority from foreign to national troops. He resigned from the commission to run for presidency in October 2013 and was declared winner of the elections on September 22nd, 2014. President Ghani was re-elected for a second term in September 2019. Without further ado, I will now give the floor to His Excellency President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani to give us the keynote address of this conference. President Ghani, over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the name of Almighty Allah, I'd like to pass my greetings and peace and blessings be upon all of you.
Fellow academics and fellow Afghan citizens. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let me get straight to the decision. President Biden's decision, endorsed by NATO, has been a game-changing and game-shaping decision. By ending the guessing game regarding the presence of the US forces, whether they will stay or what they were here for, all stakeholders, whether state or non-state, have to rethink their assumptions and examine their interests vis-a-vis the new context and work with us to reframe and accelerate a peace that will lead to a just and lasting peace for the people of Afghanistan and a predictable and stable order for partnership with our neighbors, the region, the Islamic world, and our international partners. Kahneman, the Nobel winner in economics, though a psychologist, demonstrated that when a strategic context changes, most people focus on risks and threats rather than opportunities. That's how our psyche, unfortunately, is made up. But my submission to you, and we've shared a diagram with you, is that uncertainty leads to 4 pathways and not just to risk and threats. The decision was not unexpected for me, as 2 years ago, I had written to President Trump to discuss and plan withdrawal of US-NATO forces with the Afghan government. That offer was not taken, but as Professor Barakat kindly mentioned, between 2010 and 2013, I had the honor in the duty to ensure the withdrawal of over 130,000 troops during President Karzai's tenure of office. We had timed in and we planned it. Now we need to telescope a process into a much shorter period, but nonetheless, this is a transition for which mentally we've been ready. My colleagues and I respect President Biden's decision and are focused on the new chapter of our relations with US, NATO, and other partners who've helped and supported us generously with blood and treasure. Let me show gratitude on behalf of my fellow citizens and my fellow colleagues for the generosity of the work during the last 20 years. I'm looking very much forward to the discussion with President Biden and the US administration this week, because he's invited me and my colleagues for that discussion. What are the pathways from uncertainty? COVID-19 has forced all of us on the planet Earth to confront uncertainty. The challenge of living, working, planning, managing, and leading under uncertainty when there is a rupture in our habits and routines is now familiar to people around the world. COVID-19, for instance, has been an immense opportunity for digitalization of the world, and those companies have made billions and are likely to make more. But also the suffering has been incredible, and the gaps in the global health system and lack of our capacity to think as an interconnected world is equally clear. But I don't want to get to COVID. The point that I'd like to make is that the people of Afghanistan, we the people of Afghanistan, have dealt with uncertainty for 43 years continuously. Because of it, we're not thinking just about the risks, but about 4 potential pathways: opportunities, risks, turbulence, and threats. Our current reality is the simultaneous presence of all 4 pathways. There are immense opportunities that I'll turn to. The reason I differentiate between risks and threats is that risks have risk management instruments attached to them, so they have a different order. They fall in the realm of known, and from comparative experience and historical experience, you can deal with devising risk management. Turbulence is the type of situation that now is a constant in the world. None of the certainties of post-1945 global order can be counted upon. None of the institutions can respond in the manner of the last 75 years and get the outcomes. Therefore, turbulence at different levels is a constant. And threats are those where we need to face and first, hopefully, turn them into opportunities, and if not so, into risks and turbulence. Our dominant context during the Trump administration was strategic turbulence, as assumptions on staying or leaving could change very rapidly. No high-ranking official could give us any degree of direction or clarity regarding when and how the decisions would make, which meant that we too needed to adjust constantly in terms of our assumptions and nurture the partnership. Our current reality is the simultaneity of the 4 pathways, as I brought to your attention. Not one element elevated, and this is particularly important vis-a-vis your academic discourse, will ignore the complexity, the velocity, and the interaction of these forces together. I thank you for the invitation, Professor Barakat, in the Institute, and the opportunity to participate in this conference. To remind you that your deliberations have an audience of over 30 million people who listen to radios, watch television, read and discuss all arguments, not just from the open moment that constitutes the historical present, but the deep layers of the past that have shaped our present and inform our judgments about the direction of the future. We're dealing with a simultaneity of multiple discourses because fully 20% of the Afghan nation today is constituted by refugees and the diaspora. Our national discourse is extraordinarily rich, but also extraordinarily diverse. There is, from analytic discourse to theories of conspiracy, everything comes together, meshes, and informs. In this environment, your academic conclusions have real-world consequences. Moral responsibility regarding scholarship and ethical responsibility, what Max Weber in his classic essay, Science as a Vocation, articulated. And of course, in my life, in one level, I've been inspired by that essay, but the other, Politics as a Vocation, as a calling, has been my other anchor in life. The filtering is extremely important. And let me get directly to the point. The specter of Dr. Najibullah's fall haunts us. The more people come and make those comparisons, or the more they make comparisons with Vietnam, that I firmly believe are not grounded in the present reality or context, the more they're contributing unwittingly to anxiety, to uncertainty, and to short-term conclusions drawn hastily. We as a people have been denied for 43 years the very basic right of a society, the right to peace, the right to an order, a social, economic, and political order of our choice in making. We do not ask the world for a sense of indebtedness, because that's not the reality. But we ask for understanding, and we ask for partnership in a meaningful way. And particularly with the academic community that you all represent, and with political commentators and others, we ask for engagement from a perspective of empathy, understanding, and a collective interest. Were, God forbid, for Afghanistan to be engulfed in intense conflict, like Lebanon or Syria or Yemen or Libya or others, no one in the region will be spared. The consequences will spread, and we need to understand that type of threat to our well-being and our collective interests very clearly. So how do we shape the opportunities? The first point is to acknowledge the strategic shift in context, and frame and reframe our partnerships. When a context changes, a lot of people fight it and say the context is not changed. The decision on the withdrawal is irreversible. The context is changed. That's why we respect the decision and focus immediately on framing the new context. The narrative that occupiers are here, et cetera, is over. The Afghan government has welcomed the departure of the military forces from Afghanistan. We wish them well and their families. They served here for 20 years, which we have acknowledged, but that period is over. Second, our partnerships are going to shift fundamentally, and I'm very pleased that from day one that the decision has been communicated, we've all come with President Biden, with NATO Secretary General, with all key interlocutors on the new chapter, a chapter that would focus on bringing peace, prosperity, and connectivity to Afghanistan. That is important to grasp. There is still enormous amount of support in our partner countries for us and for our people. They understand our wishes and aspirations. They're aware of our sufferings and pain. In this regard, the region is crucial. Our neighbors, near and far, the neighbors near or all those that have borders with us or frontiers with us, Pakistan, Iran, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, China, and near and far, India, China, again, Russia, Turkey, the Gulf, Islamic countries, all our circles, 5 circles of our foreign policy, 4 of which, 3 of which fall within the regional context. Here, what I'm delighted to share is that during my presidency, the region has embraced with us a narrative of geoeconomics, a narrative based on connectivity, cooperation, and prosperity. And let us, for a moment, frame Afghanistan within the 2030 world. By that time, India would be the most populous country on the world, followed by Africa, followed by East Asia, including China, followed by Southeast Asia, followed by Latin America, followed by Europe. The new middle class in Asia is likely to be 5 times larger than the middle class in Europe, Japan, and the United States. It's the tale of 2 middle classes, one declining, the other rising. The economic integration of Asia from a geographical space to a continent is going to be transformational. And by our location, we are at the heart of this transformation. As Iqbal, the poet laureate of Pakistan, said, Asia is but a body of water and earth, of which the Afghan nation is the heart. From its accord, the accord of Asia, from its discord, the discord of Asia. We are offering the accord of Asia, the vision of accord of Asia. And here, agreement on a stable, sovereign, democratic, united, peaceful, and neutral Afghanistan is crucial. We are seriously exploring the permanent neutrality of Afghanistan, so all our neighbors near and far can be assured that Afghanistan will not become the ground for negative competition or rivalries or for a base. We are not looking for any patrons, we are looking for partners. That's our key. And our natural resources, from water to location to minerals, to particularly to our cultural heritage and our human capital, will become part of this fantastic drama. We are sharing our analysis of terrorism as an ecosystem and the constant morphing of the 5th wave of terrorism, a term that I coined some years early, into ever more dangerous forms. The region needs to join us as the world in understanding the risks that have all been transferred to us now. We've done our part and we will continue, but without a serious dialogue on an approach that is freed from military intervention, will not be able to. And in this regard, let me say how delighted I am with the ulama from across the world. The most prominent Muslim scholars have condemned the fighting as having no grounding in Islamic thinking, practice, or in the injunctions of God Almighty in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is important to understand that that narrative is outlived its usefulness. The latest example where the ulama from Pakistan and Afghanistan joined together in Saudi Arabia to issue their declaration is a game changer. The mental models are extremely important. Peace, we've put front and center as part of our narrative to shape a common future for all Afghans. There's a golden bridge to peace. Again, it's shared with you as a slide. I stand by my article in Foreign Affairs in my speeches at Kabul University. I don't want to elaborate here because I've been on record regarding those. It's extremely crucial to understand a three-phase: making peace, then moving on to implementing it, to building the peace, and then sustaining it. My colleagues and I have been very clear, we're not interested in power, we're interested in principle and commitment. We're willing to bring the elections forward to ensure orderly succession. And I once again call on Taliban to accept the will of the people as a manifestation of the injunctions of Almighty God that we must make decisions collectively and move together. Our request to all stakeholders, state and non-state actors alike, is to avoid the following behaviors. Stop hedging. Stop waiting for events to continue to unfold. And particularly, please avoid atavistic behavior. Behavior in terms of policies, practices, and approaches that were fitted to a particular view of your interests or to a particular context. Embrace the new context with us. Don't look at Afghanistan from perspective of the past. Look at it from the perspective of today and the future, and join us to create a peaceful Afghanistan based on the noble quest for peace, cooperation, and stability and prosperity for us. My concluding remarks, unfortunately, have to acknowledge the threats. And again, with humility, I suggest the Taliban movement are making a strategic mistake in increasing violence. When a political pathway is on the table and there is a place in Doha, in a process, why resort to violence when the context is changed and none of the assumptions with which they operated in the past is relevant? A tragedy is in the making. That tragedy is an intense and destructive civil war. They and they alone will be responsible for the intensity, the scale, and scope of this tragedy. I give you one example. The wonderful Green Valley of Arghandab. It has a 4,000 years continuous history of agriculture. It has a 50,000 documented history of humanities living there. Bridges, 3 bridges, built with our labor, were destroyed costing between $30 and $50 million, culverts, hundreds of houses were planted with landmines, irrigation channels destroyed, etc. Thousands of people forced out of their houses. What for? What's this? Where is a movement believing that they are entitled or demand to be considered a serious candidate for exercising power on a national scale engages in such behavior? Will this type of behavior win them friends? Using car bombs on a continuous basis against all public infrastructure, assassinations of polio campaigners, civil rights, religious leaders, women leaders, does not win you friends. All of us are made from the same soil. As they say, in the past, when I would ask during my youth, why would not people leave a village? They will say, look, the bones of our ancestors are here. 5,000 years of our common history is given us the same bones. If we go towards stubbornness, a part of our national character, then no one can compete or outcompete with that. But this is not time for stubbornness, it's time for wisdom. In humility, that's another part of our culture. The central questions are Taliban acknowledging the centrality of an Afghan nation as a community of common interest and sentiment? Or, like 2001, they are putting their relations with their network and sponsors first? The question is simple. Are you acknowledging Afghan patriotism as our common bond and therefore a belief in common future? Or will Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Al-Qaeda, all these other groups be your compatriots and moral fellow travelers? Make a choice. Clarify that choice to the Afghan people. It is amazing that a movement that is taken seriously globally, regionally, and particularly by the government and people of Afghanistan, it's not offered us anything regarding what their vision for the people of the country will be. What is it that they envisage? The drought, Corona, return of 3 million refugees from Iran, Pakistan, 2 million from Iran, etc. Diaspora, women, youth, the poor, the disabled. The centrality of this, management of Afghan resources. What's your policy on water? What's your policy on minerals? What's your policy on making friends? What's your policy on turning enmity into friendship? The greatest art in history. The greatest art is not to fight. The greatest art to end the fight. Presidency is a position requiring humility and constant innovation. My masters, the Afghan people, have a focal point to direct their aspirations and frustrations. I take their criticism and I take their aspirations as my guide in life, and it's always forcing me to focus on performance on multiple levels. We refuse to become a national security state. In the midst of the worst fighting, we have created the largest dams. We are building hundreds of projects on a daily basis in every corner of the country. And we've changed the discourse of the region and the world from looking at us just as poor Afghanistan to a potentially rich Afghanistan and a partner. But the job of the commander-in-chief, by contrast, is one-dimensional. Ensuring the survival of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Like my sons and daughters, who as commander-in-chief, I send to face the threats, I have no hesitation in sacrificing my life on the altar of the well-being of my people. They have to understand, never will I leave this country. Never will I abandon my people. And never will I stop urging peace and prosperity for all of us. My greatest honor, Professor, has been to be the chief servant of my people. I lived 24 years in exile, as you mentioned. And I stated in other words, I was never discriminated against. I went to the best schools. I taught in the best schools. I worked in the best institutions. And I got all these jobs even without giving a job talk or an interview. The jobs were offered to me on the phone. But I wasn't happy. Since my return on the 26th of December 2001, I'm happy. Because every day, every action I take, from planting a tree to creating a massive irrigation channel, or harnessing or seeing young girls, 8 to 12, raise their hands. When I asked them, how many of you want to become president of the country? These young girls, 80% of them want to be the president of this country. We have to give hope. Our choice, dear colleagues, is a just and lasting peace. If war is imposed upon us, as it's being right now, we will surprise the world, as has been our habit and destiny in the past. It's the last thing I want, because each time we've had to fight, the destruction has been immense. Between 1978 and 2001, the World Bank estimated we lost $240 billion in destroyed infrastructure and lost opportunity. Let us not bring that back. Let us not bring that nightmare back to our people. Let us generate the hundreds of billions of dollars that is the potential of this country. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I again ask for your understanding that I cannot stay with you. You've given me 2 hours to prepare for this and have an hour to join you. Now I have to go back to those tasks that require urgent attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We really appreciate your time with us. I think the wise words you've shared with us as an academic community, but with the rest of the world, are extremely important as this critical juncture of the history of Afghanistan. I appreciate, and we've taken to heart your advice to us as an academic community not to increase the level of anxiety by, off the cuff conclusions on what is going on. I think this is one of the reasons why we have intended and we have planned this academic conference. We felt, as we were saying yesterday in our first day of the meeting, too much has been done too fast in terms of reflections on what is happening in Afghanistan, and the time was right to bring academics together. And if you see from our list of speakers, almost half of them are Afghans who have risen to new heights over the last 20 years. And this is something I'm sure would be appreciated by everyone. Thank you also for the recommendations, the clear recommendations you made for the friendly countries that are looking towards supporting Afghanistan. And also, I think that personal touch of why you would like to remain in the country and why you are committed to staying in the country. And you'll probably find that many others who are now in exile will probably share the same aspiration. They would like to come back to Afghanistan, and inshallah, one day, Afghanistan will go back to being the home for everyone. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch, inshallah.